You better watch this video or listen to the rest of this episode or you're going to hell. That is not true. But I am proposing or wondering or curious around why do we use, as followers of Jesus, so often that type of language? Why? And more importantly, what is it doing to us as followers of Jesus? Why do we lean on this idea, you better do this or God is going to get you? And I guess on a deeper level, is it even accurate or completely honest? That is what I want to talk about, offer some scattered thoughts this episode that I've called Heaven's Gates, Hell's Flames, and Halitosis. So let's talk about halitosis. It was a term, an obscure term for quite a while, just to talk about the bacteria growing in your mouth and obviously the thing that causes bad breath. But the reason you may have heard the word or the reason it's become popularized is in the 1920s, Listerine, then their marketing team had a somewhat brilliant idea. They ran with this term and started to print these type of ads. One of them said, "Always the bridesmaid, never the bride. Is bad breath ruining your life? Is bad breath ruining your chances of ever getting married? Halitosis. Stop halitosis with Listerine." And they ran multiple ads around jobs, around getting married, around romance, threatening that this evil bacteria infestation in your mouth was stopping you from living your life. It was the biggest, worstest, baddest baddie that ever existed. And so they had a solution though. Don't worry, they have Listerine and that'll cure and solve everything. You can get married, you can get that job promotion. Life will be better once you use mouthwash. And what I find so interesting about this campaign is it worked. It worked incredibly well. They call this fear-based marketing. People were scared. People were worried. They tapped into a need and it worked. They sold so much product. In fact, it is the name brand that it is now because of this original campaign in the 1920s. And what I find funny is it's not completely dishonest. Bad breath can be bad for relationships, can be bad for meeting people. It's not nice, it's not pleasant. But this over-exaggeration or over-focus on this fear meant it was a tad dishonest. You see, this fear-based marketing often talks about a real threat. It amplifies the shame and the consequence and then offers a solution. It's actually somewhat brilliant. Now let's pivot to what is known as the gospel. The good news is another way to say that if you haven't heard that word, or good gossip, news too good not to share. Often in our Christian worlds, we often use this to refer to what Jesus has done, is doing, and is a part of and inviting us into. It's good news. But my question is why so often when we're sharing it, feel like bad news? Or feel like halitosis or fear-based marketing. Or a threat, an amplified consequence and shame with a very niche solution. I can remember as a kid growing up in church and this drama crew would come to the church and they offered us to do this play, this production called Heaven's Gates and Hell's Flames. And I was excited, had a bit of theatre in me, had a bit of love, liked to talk, liked to speak, liked to act. And so me and my mate auditioned to be demons in this play. And basically, if you don't know what this play is, it was a production that would be held at your church. And basically, it'd have all these scenarios where someone would get hit by a train and they would have accepted Jesus, and someone on the train tracks didn't accept Jesus, let's say. And it would be this sequence of the person accepting Jesus getting welcomed into heaven. It was quite bright lights, angels, loud music. But if you didn't, then it would go dark, there'd be laughter, Satan would appear from the corner, and he and his demons, which is what I auditioned for, would drag you out. At the time, I was too lanky, too skinny, too small, and so I didn't get the part. The director wanted big, buff demons, black costume coming out and like ripping these people away, carrying them away. He wanted them to be scary. The whole idea was, at the end of these scenarios, someone would come out and say, hey, today is your chance. Today is your chance to not go to hell. Make a choice. Do you want to enter heaven, or to be dragged off by a buff demon in a dark morph suit? That's your choice. And I want you to raise your hand at the end of this. And I remember my particular church did it twice, and 2 nights each time. And both times, you want to bet, hands were raised. In some way, it worked. And you may not have experienced this extreme version of this, but this conversation you're familiar with, Christian or not Christian. You might be just watching this because you're curious, but you've been a part of this where there's this, you better do this or you're going to hell, or he's going to get you. And people did respond. This is the nuance of it. I know leaders, I know people in churches now, I know people that are doing beautiful and brilliant work, and their first decision was putting their hand up. Then they went on to explore deeper and further things, but they did make a decision. And so in none of this am I calling something particularly evil. What I'm exploring is, what has that done? That way of selling, that fear-based marketing only, doing in our culture at the moment? And is that the only way to talk about the gospel? Now, I can already imagine my comment section lighting up. People going, oh, this guy's denying hell, and oh my goodness, he's watering down the gospel. And go on. I welcome all conversation. I love all conversation. And I'm honestly, believe me or not doing that, or not intending to. I believe there needs to be some sort of choice. If we've got a choice in life to choose whether we want to follow Jesus or not, I believe there is something to not choosing to be with him for eternity. I believe there needs to be, in a just system, some sort of justice. Now, do I believe the Bible is explicit around if it's eternal torment, or as John 3:16 says, is it a perishing? Many, many others have spoken on this, and I will have some links in the description to some great ideas and great thoughts either side. All that to say is, I don't believe there is a lot said about it. I certainly don't believe Jesus speaks about it a lot as a threat to a non-believer. And I certainly do not believe there is enough said on our eternal lives to build our entire gospel presentation on as the only way to introduce people to Jesus. And here's my scattered thoughts on it. Here's my problem. Is that if that is the only way, if a threat, if a fear-based marketing is the only way of speaking about Jesus, is the only way we're introducing people to Jesus, we miss so much, or we are at risk of missing so much. Can I explain with another story? I know I'm asking for permission, but I'm going to say it anyway. There's this story kind of narrative attached to this way of presenting the gospel. And it goes like this. People will say, well, I'm just going to wait till I'm on my deathbed and then I'm going to quickly accept Jesus, get my ticket to heaven, and I'll be okay. Great thinking. Interesting thought. Not a bad bit of logic. Here's the crux of the issue. Our Christian response that we've often been taught to respond like goes like this. Well, what if you're not on your deathbed? What if God takes you earlier? What if it's a surprise death? Then you'll never get the chance to accept Jesus as your Lord and Saviour. Think about what that says for a moment. That says the only reason to explore the God that created us with our purpose, with a plan, with things for us to participate in out of worship, for things for us to build and create, like the Garden of Eden in this world, his redemptive work, both now and into eternity, living life knowing our Creator, living life with the relationship that Christ died to heal, to bring us back into, to walk in his Spirit and with his Spirit daily, to live a life of full divine participation and purpose. We don't speak on any of that. We say, oh, no. You might die early and not get a chance to pray the prayer. Totally undermining, totally shrinking what the gospel truly can bring and mean. And what does that cause? What does that mean in our cultural moment at the moment? It means that people on these platforms are saying, hey, I've deconstructed my faith because I don't believe in hell, or I don't believe in a God that wants to punish me. And then underneath that is debates around whether that's real or not, or true or not. I want to say boring conversation, but that's not true. What a good conversation, but is that really the only conversation? Seriously. God has his whole life for us to live. We could be busy doing redemptive work. We could be busy showing people Jesus, showing that we can rest in him. People crying out for forgiveness, people crying out, not knowing what to do with this violent cycle that is the empire that we currently live in, this fear-based world. They're wanting peace. They're wanting purpose. They're wanting to know who they are. They're wanting to know another way. They're wanting a true king, not a politician, not a political party. They're living in the world right now, and we have something to offer them. And the best we can come up with is you better do this or you're going to get this consequence that we think plays out like this. Imagine if we didn't have that. Or imagine if we just put it in its right place. Instead of some cheap, limited, shameful ticket that we're selling at last minute, we'd be speaking about what Jesus can do today, right now. And yes, it's so good that you're going to want to do it for eternity. I wonder what the conversation would be if we got really good at that. And when I say good, Jesus doesn't need a marketing machine. Jesus is good. If Jesus is the truth, if he is the truest reality, then we only need to point to what he's done in your life if you've experienced that, if you haven't, or point to what he is doing in people's lives. Point to the need, absolutely. But he doesn't need us to cleverly market or threaten people to accept him. God is God. If they see him playing out in your life, they will ask the question, what on earth is right with you? The type of peace that the Spirit can bring is a type of peace that people are thirsty for. And like Jesus, as he sits with a woman at a well in the gospel narratives, he does call out her sin. He does call out where she has fallen short, not as a threat, but as an understanding that that's the best she thought she could do in her situation. She has missed the mark completely, and he says, hey, as they drink from this well, I can offer you living water. I can offer you hope. Can you imagine if he sat down and said, do you know where you're going to spend eternity? Oh, don't get me wrong, it's not a bad question. I'm trying not to be negative. I've done a lot of funerals, and that's the question you should be asking at funerals. Don't get me wrong. But he doesn't ask it right then and there. He sees a lady trying to just massively mistaken, massively full of shame. And he says, there's more. There's more to life. Let me offer you this. I wonder what that would look like. In 1 Peter 3:15, it says this. Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you, to give the reason for the hope that you have. Not give a reason when people start asking out of fear. Not give a reason because you've scared them silly, shamed them silly. But no, we were walking and talking in a way that they go, oh, why do you have hope? Especially in this day and age. Why on earth are you still okay? How are you still standing? Well, I'm not perfect. I have fallen short. And I'm speaking from my very real experience. But I carry this hope because here's the good news. Here's the gospel. Here's the work that Christ can do, has done, is doing, can do, and will do. And you can be secure in him, in that for all eternity. It's not about what you do or earn, but as a response of inviting him in. Oh man, what a good and beautiful adventure. Hey, thanks for sticking around. My name's Steve Gray. This is Somewhat Scattered. There's some scattered thoughts for you today. And look forward to interacting with you in any of the different ways that we can on social media. If you want to do the social media thing, if you're watching this, give it a like, subscribe. It does let me know that maybe these scattered thoughts are resonating. And I'll do more. And I'd love to hear feedback, whether you like it or don't like it or whatever. I'd love to hear from you. Speak soon. Thanks.